Now, before we close out, SWAC Media Day is coming up. And like I say, I call it the annual PV Snub Day. All right, that's what it is. It's the annual PV Snub Day. So, because I know that's what it is, I just want to I want to place in front of you, those individuals, this year who have an opportunity, right? Who are positioned to be all SWAC type of guys, right? Who have that just based on what I foresee. And so I just want to talk a little bit about about what's coming and talk about what they have to do if they're going to be all SWAC guys and why I think they have an opportunity, right? And so these are guys that I'm going to put on your radar because listen, I know the SWAC ain't gonna put them on y'all radar, so I'm gonna just put them on y'all radar. Y'all can go ahead, be aware, know what's going on, and get ready for the show this year. So first and foremost, let me get the banner out the way, right? Obviously, I got Cam Peters, right? When you talk about somebody who has obviously an opportunity, to get the accolades, right? It's going to be the quarterback, right? So obviously, I got Cam Peters here, right? It could easily be Lucas Coley, right? But again, because I think he's probably going to be the guy, who's going to be leading this team. Listen, one, he already has an opportunity to be newcomer of the year. Look at what Jace Wilson did this year with 1,600 yards, right, passing. I believe he had, I want to say 13 touchdowns and like 6 interceptions, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, right? That was newcomer of the year numbers, right? I think Cam is going to blow through those numbers. I mean, that's like 6-7 game numbers for Cam this year, right? So he's immediately already on the radar for newcomer of the year, period, point blank, right? Because he's going to be leading this team in his Wheaton offense that Wheaton is not going to be. Remember we talked about it the other day. There's not going to be a 65-35 run pass this year. That's not going to happen, right? We're going to see almost a 50-50, 49-51, 47-53, right? That ratio of pass to throw is going to be way different this year. So Cam is going to have an opportunity to put up the numbers, right? So automatically, like I'm saying, he's going to have an opportunity to be in that newcomer of the year conversation. And I think he's going to get it, right? If he wins, right? If the wins come with it, right? This is the caveat, right? Then you talking about offensive player of the year. Because we already know at the end of the day, with a Shedeur Sanders, with a Jeremy Musa, that offensive player of the year award is a quarterback award. That's just what it is, right? We argue about Jarvion Howard, we can argue about Darius Owens. It's a quarterback award, right? And especially for the quarterback that leads his team to win, right? If he has the numbers. Jeremy Musa had the numbers last year. Shedeur obviously had the numbers. So when you talk about winning, right? Winning is a part of that portion, right? PV wins the West, wins the SWAC Championship. It's almost like hands down, like whoever's leading that team on the offensive side of the ball, that's the offensive player of the year, right? Now, what numbers? And listen, this is gonna be a way more balanced offense than last year. You know what I'm saying? It's way more balanced offense than last year. Now, when you're talking about what he needs, right? Let's talk about the numbers though. When you're talking about what he needs to do, outside of just winning, right? 2,000 pass yards, 15 plus pass touchdowns, and a 2.5 to 1 touchdown to pass to interception ratio, right? Listen, that's what Jeremy Musa had, right? 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, right? No, sorry. Jeremy Musa, 22 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, right? That's a little slightly over a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, right? We talked about Aaron Allen last year, who ended up being the second team All-SWAC quarterback, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's a 2.5 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio, right? Miles Crawley obviously would probably be that next guy people look at. He didn't get one of those two positions, but he would probably be slotted in next. 2,300 pass yards, 16 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. What are we seeing, right? You're looking at 15 plus touchdowns, 2,000 plus passing yards, and again, that 2 to 2.5 touchdown to interception ratio. That's very doable. I mean, in Whedon's offense, that's super extremely doable, right? For him to do. Also, what he's going to have and add on, that Musa didn't have and that Aaron Allen didn't have this year is, both of those guys only two rush touchdowns. David Musa with negative rushing yards, obviously not really a guy with his leg. Now it's not really a guy with his leg. Aaron Allen had 74 rush yards total. So again, he's not a guy with his leg. If Cam also can add maybe 200, 250 rushing yards, maybe 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns, well, now you're talking about a total touchdowns of 20 plus, right? And so I think that's very doable for Cam this year, right? I think 2,000 pass yards is extremely doable, and with a team that's going to be winning. Again, newcomer, he's automatically going to be in that conversation. Offensive player of the year is definitely going to be about, do we get the job done and win the West and win the SWAC championship? And then when you talk about, being first team or second team, a quarterback, it's about those numbers. That's the range you want to be in. And again, I think he's going to really have a chance to be in that range when you're talking number wise, right? You know what I'm saying? See, Juice is going to get tough pieces of that last year. That's going to be a question, right? We got a lot of guys when you talk about tight ends, right? You know what I'm saying? So let's move to the next guy, though, that I got here, Samar Savage, right? We're going to get to Lottie in a second. Let's talk about Shamar Savage. When you look at what Shamar Savage did last year, this is a guy who only had 20 catches, right? 20 catches, and I actually I don't have his yardage up here, but I believe he had like 20 catches for maybe like 400, 400 odd so yards, right? So you're talking about a guy who really the secret to Samar Savage last year was the fact that he had the highest average yards per catch numbers than anybody in the SWAC, right? 22.4 yards per catch, which is just crazy. That's mind blowing, right? 22.4 yards per catch. But now, only 20 catches. I want you to understand. Last year, Shamar Savage only had 20 catches. 20 catches for 448 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's where he was last year. Now, we're talking about, again, because we're talking about why I think these guys are going to be there and what do they have to do to be there. Let's look at this past year, right? When you look at the guys who were there, Keyshawn Johnson, Marcus Raleigh, Jamarie Sharee, Materia Hunt. Those are 4 guys who got the All-SWAC nods, first team, second team. What were they able to do? You know what I'm saying? When you're talking about Keyshawn Johnson, this is a guy who had, 61 receptions, 829 yards, 7 touchdowns. Monterio Hunt, 37 receptions, 633 yards, 4 touchdowns. When you talk about Marcus Riley, 34 receptions, 584 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And then he had, Jamarie Sharee, who was able to grab 51 catches, 497 yards, and 3 touchdowns, right? So you can see kind of where the numbers need to be. So what I have him listed here is like Samar Savage, if he can get 40 catches, 500 yards, and 5 touchdowns, that's 12 and a half yards per catch average. And everybody that's in that top receiver range in the SWAC on this past year, all of them are over 12, right? They're over 12. They're really in that 13, 14 range, right? So that's very doable. And like I say, last year he was 22.4 a catch. And so is this possible? I think so. Listen, you got to understand. I want you guys to understand. And we talked about it before. We didn't throw the ball like we should have. 65% run, 35% pass. I want you to understand. Shamar Savage only had 29 targets in 2023. I know this is going to blow your mind. 20 catches on 29 targets. He was only thrown the ball 29 times. A guy who averaged 22 yards per catch, okay? I want you to understand, right? So when you talk about where he needs to be, and I think you understand, if you look at the fact that we threw the ball 252 times last year, we ran the ball 479 times last year, those numbers are going to be more even, right? So even if you had 352 passes, 379 runs, right? That's more of a place where we may be. So even if you just immediately say, okay, there's 100 more pass attempts out there, how many more of those pass attempts will Shamar Savage get versus what's going to be divvied up to other receivers? And I say I could easily see him getting another 30 pass attempts, right? Another 30 thrown his way. That puts him at around 60, right? That puts him at around 60 targets, right? And I think out of 60, I mean, 40 catches out of 60 targets, I think I mean, I think that's even maybe slightly lower than what he could actually get, right? But 40 catches is very doable if you're going to have 60 targets. And I think, again, 12 and a half average per catch, that's 500 yards if he can get in the end zone, right? This is going to be the caveat. Only 2 touchdowns last year. Can he get into the end zone 5+ times? I think these numbers would solidify him as, yeah, this guy's a first or second team, all-SWAC guy. I think he has the opportunity to do that this year. Now, I also want to let you know, listen, Shamar Savage has the highest pro football focus offensive rating for all SWAC receivers, right? So this is a guy who when they go back and look at the film and say, man, this is really one of the guys, right? So he really needs to get looks, really needs to get targets because man, I think this guy has the ability, has the size, has the skills. And man, he could position himself to have a chance to get looks and maybe play at the next level, man. So I think you also obviously winning is going to help too, right? Because you had guys like Antonio Jones from Grambling. I mean, I think he could have an argument to say, SWAC, Cameron Young from Alabama A&M, Fabian McCree, obviously Jackson State, right? But I think it's definitely easier to make those arguments when your team wins, right? You know what I'm saying? So obviously Keyshawn Johnson just knocked it out the park as far as receptions, highest receptions, highest yards as a receiver too. Material Hunt follow him second, and then when you got Riley and Sharif, they just on the winning team, right? They had the numbers for sure, but they also the winning team, right? So I think that is what's going to kind of knock out Antonio Jones or Cameron Young. So winning is also going to help when you talk about Shamar Savage getting that nod at All-SWAC as well, man. So that's Shamar Savage. Now, I said Shamar Savage is going to have 1,000+ yards. Hey, listen, now hey, I'm all for it. Savage is he definitely is savage, right? You know what I'm saying? I said PV offense might average 50 a game. That's no cap. Hey, listen, I'm with you. I'm with you. I listen. If anybody hope they average 50 is me. So let's move on, right? All right, let's talk about Rowdy Goodwin. Rowdy Goodwin. I we talked about the tight end room. Obviously, you guys know, man, we got multiple tight ends in this room now. Um, who can all play? Jason Medlock, who came over from Alabama State, previously at UConn. You also have Ethan John, who's coming over from Iowa Central Community College at Rowdy, right? Godwin also coming from Trinity Valley Community College. When I look at all three of the guys, because I know we're going to use the tight ends more, but the question that I asked, right? The question I had to ask when it came to Rowdy was, who was the guy that could get 20+ catches? Because when you look at, Tavarius Griffin, look at DJ Stevens over at Jackson State, which was again the number one and number two tight ends, from this past year. That's what you're looking at, right? You're looking at 20 catches, you're looking at 300+ yards, right? And then a couple touchdowns. That's where you need to be. And I'm thinking, okay, who is the guy that has the because you could easily see that those 20 catches could be divvied up between Jace Medlock, Ethan John, and Rowdy Godwin as well, right? It could easily be that too as well, right? Versus him getting those 20. But I think the thing that sets him apart is when you look at you know, one his size, 6'7", 250, but also, man, he is great in the run game, right? As a blocker. And so I'm like, man, this is a guy who's gonna get a lot of chances to be on the field. You know what I'm saying? And especially when you talk about in red zone packages, goal line packages, which is hey, that's a tight end's dream, around the goal line, using that big body right, and being able to get scores, right? Especially off play fakes, etc. And so, he was a guy when I just looked at the film that I said, okay, I think he's probably a guy that's based on kind of what I'm seeing. I could see him getting more snaps and more opportunities than the other two guys. And again, right now, listen, we still got fall camp. The guys got to go through, but just that big body, that big frame, right? Seeing what he does in the run game. I see him being on the field, right, to have an opportunity, to bring in that amount of targets. Last year at Trinity Valley, he had 11 catches for 110 yards, right? It's a guy who caught half of what he needed to catch last year at Trinity Valley already. And now he's coming to an offense that's going to be a lot more pass friendly, a lot more tight end friendly. And so I can see him having the ability to get, somewhere close to those swing catches. Now, will he be able to get those 300 yards? I'm not sure. And again, I think that makes it like set, that makes it sure. But even if he's like high 200s, 260, 270, 280, and maybe he has like 6 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns, I think that also kind of gets him a nod too, as far as looking at all SWAC, right? But it's gonna be tough because, like, man, we got a stable of tight ends. Said sure hands, short yardage, move the chains, red zone guys mainly is gonna be huge. Perry, what's going on, man? Welcome to the stream, my guy.
Hey, good afternoon, good evening.
We happy to have you back. You're on mute, I think. I think you're muted.
Am I muted?
Let me see.
I'm unmuted. I'm good now. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, okay. I'm unmuted. How's it going this evening?
Oh man, it's going good, man. We're just going through, man. I'm trying to really break down and show how, man, we got some guys this year that really the SWAC need to be paying attention to. Because I know, listen, the PV snub day is coming. So I just want PV Nation to know, listen, don't let the snubs, make you think that we ain't got them guys, right? We got some guys, man. So what do you think, man, about, any of these guys that we've gone through so far? Cam, Shamar, and Rowdy.
I think one of the things you missed was Shamar is bigger than most receivers in the SWAC. This guy is 6'4", 215, and he can fly. And one thing that I remembered and admired about him is he can make those catches like right in the corner of the field. Like if you just get it there, he could really move the change for you. And he's very hard to tackle. He's aggressive. And the other thing you left off is Rowdy. I don't think we ever had a tight end that was 6'7", 250.
Never. Yeah.
And and people are just sleeping on the fact that we got Whedon. This is the first time PV has had an experienced OC that wasn't promoted from wide receiver coach or whatever. And the one thing you left off that's going to sneak up on everybody, this is the first time we've had a quarterback coach in years. So
that's true.
It's going to be real interesting because what I like about Whedon is he likes to do like Coach Shotgun. And you remember how many points we average with him. He gives you a lot of eye candy. I went and looked at some of his old games. And he likes to give you a lot of eye candy and movement. And what's scary about that, you had a little argument on your last call about the OC. But I'm going to be honest with you. I think I haven't played high school football since high school, but I could have won with Conley. What we failed to do with him is we could have dragged the tight end across the middle and did some misdirection because what people didn't know about Conley, the dude run a 4.3. So you didn't do enough where he could really the defense knew where he was going to be. And it was kind of tough when the whole crowd knew that first down we were running a 21 dive. It was kind of, and you put yourself in a bad position. This year that's just going to be different. And with his creativeness and what people aren't talking about, I think you left a guy off the list. That thing, Juicy, getting used in the offense the way he should be. I see him possibly running the ball sometime in the slot, running, a sweep, doing a wide receiver belly route, just all kind of stuff because he ain't the biggest guy like me. I'm not the biggest guy, but he is just so aggressive and so really wanted. The few times he touched the ball last year, it was going to be a first down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was dynamic.
And then with that wrecking ball you got at a running back, 6'2", 230, 240.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know what our offense is going to do. And so I'm just saying that I'm not really being a homer. I'm looking at it for what it is. And I just really think that people are, but you know what's going to happen. SWAC Media Day, Prairie View will be picked third or fourth in the West.
That's
So
how it is. That's how it's
we're going to
always
have
done.
to make people believe. So
That's how it's always done, man. You know what I'm saying? We about to get there. You know what I'm saying? We about to get there. You know what I'm saying? We about to talk about that. What I see that bad man is in the building. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there he is.
I see that bad man is in the building. Yeah, man. We're just talking about because we know how the annual PV Snub Day at SWAC Media Day goes. So we're just trying to let people know, you know, what the numbers need to look like. And we really think with you and Coach Whedon, man, that, you know, getting those numbers that'll put you in a position, newcomer of the year, you know what I'm saying, all SWAC is there, man. And so I know you mentioned Lamar J, right? We're about to get to him in a second. I want to talk about what I think Chris Herron needs to do. But quick, and I think when we talk about Herron, we talk about Juice, talk about James Burns, right? We really could have put a lot of guys here. You just can't have 5 receivers, right? You know what I'm saying? So, but we got so many guys who are dynamic, right? You know what I'm saying? Who got speed. So really, this really kind of fits any of those guys' bill of what they would have to do if they're going to get all SWAC, right? Because I think Shamar is going to have that chance based on just what he's able to do and his size, right? But now when you talk about Aaron Juice, look, I'm saying 30 to 40 catch range and talking about big yards after catch average, right? So that means like you still getting like 50 yards, right? 500 yards total, period, throughout the season, right? 5+ touchdowns, right? And when you look last year, again, one of the big things I'm keep nailing home is people don't realize how little targets many of these guys got. Chris Herron only had 14 targets, all 2023. You know what I'm saying? So Trajan Spiller, only 35 targets, all 2023.
Oh, he take the top off of defense.
So,
man.
So that's what I'm saying, man. We got a lot of guys in that room. You know, we're going to be spreading the wealth around. You know what I mean? But, you know, I think if those guys stay in that range, then, you know, we're going to be able to get where we need to get to. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So let's move forward because you talked about the backfield. So I want to mention, and we got some of the big meat eaters up front too, because I want to bring some of them.
Oh yeah, I love the meat eaters.
Because I think these guys have an opportunity too, you know, to be some guys. Hey, listen. Whenever they snub us, we're gonna put them in a movie. Tell them, boy.
He said something right there.
I told y'all this year, man. This year about to be a movie, so we making movies. That's what we do. The year about to be a movie, so we making movies. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? So, but first of all, man, Connor Wisham, when you look at, again, Pro Football Focus shows like of the returning running backs in the SWAC, regardless of snaps, Connor Wisham has the highest offensive grade of all running backs coming back. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about a guy who has the ability to put it together on both ends, look at his, you know, his pass blocking ability too as well, which helps the bowl when you talk about keeping guys like Cam upright, you know what I'm saying, for them to get a chance to get the ball spittle downfield, etc. You know, that's big. But also, man, I think this year, you know, he was really the third guy these last year behind Amar Antoine, behind Caleb Johnson. I think this year, when you talk about two heads, you're talking about Connor Wisham and Lamar J. McDowell as those two heads. Now, you got guys behind them, man. The running back room, I mean, you got Scooter that's coming over from Northwestern, who's really good at catching the ball at the backfield. And I think that's something that Whedon is also probably going to say, man, I need to figure out how to get him, you know, some touches as well, right? You know, you got Ronald Young, who obviously played in spells last year too, a big back, 6 foot, 195 pounds, right? Coming from Iowa and Louisiana, who played sparingly last year. Obviously, Jamarius Brooks, right? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
So
Brooks,
we got other guys.
Oh, my goodness.
So, but when I look at, I think these are probably going to be the two guys you lean on. Connor Wisham is very hard to bring down, man. He's not a guy who comes down easy. Very hard runner, a lot of yards after first contact. And so, man, him being able to ramp up his touches. You know, we looked at Amar Antoine and Caleb Johnson. Both of them had over 100 carries last year, right? So you think those first two guys are definitely going to have at least somewhere in that touch range, most likely. And you talk about Connor Wisham, 39 rushes last year for 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's in limited action. That's only in 8 games, right? We already talked about him being an excellent pass blocker. And then Lamar J had 124 at Campbell. This is last year, 124 rushes, 498 yards, and 5 touchdowns, right? And also another guy who showed success in the pass blocking game, multiple games, right? So, you know, you're talking about both of them getting, if both of them can kind of increase slightly the yardage, right? And so, that's going to be the question. I think Lamar J's probably, when you look at kind of like a Chance Williams last year, that was at Grambling, right? Along with
Oh
the
yeah,
other
he
back
was
that was
nice.
there.
Yeah,
But
he was
you had
nice.
one back who had more yards, one back that had more touchdowns, right? And I kind of feel like that may be kind of something similar we see this year, to where McDowell probably is going to get in the end zone a little bit more. But Connor Wisham is probably going to have a little bit more total yardage, right? But I think both of these guys, if they can put it together, I have it at 7 touchdowns, 700 yards for either one of them getting, which is only a 58 yards per game average in 12 games, right? If any of them can get there, then they're definitely sliding in and say, hey man, these are all SWAC guys without a shadow of doubt, especially with a team that's winning.
And remember that Brooks has such speed. If he gets in the secondary, he's an issue.
Oh man, he took some, he took some down, and getting a chance to play in those games, especially some of those even blowout games, right, is really big, for guys, man. Said the snub backfield heavy last year. They might want to get with the program. Uh, yeah, so I mean, it was tough last year because you didn't really have Amar Antoine and Caleb Johnson really being able to push through that ceiling. And that's why I put the numbers at like the 7 touchdowns, 700 yards, right? Remember, you had Owens with over 1,000, 1,300. You had Herb Mulligan with like 800. You had Donald England with like 700, right? Plus 7 touchdowns.
Mulligan, man, yeah.
So you got guys who are gonna put up numbers. So if you really want to substantially place yourself in an all SWAC position, that's kind of where you would need to be, right? You know what I'm saying? I think, like I say, winning is the first thing, because again, right, that those putting you in a winning position gets the eyes on you, and then when we look at the numbers to go with the winning, I think that's kind of what gets you over the hump. So that's what I got for those guys. I'll obviously, when you talk about the offensive line, I think there's so many guys who have an opportunity to come in and play, be a part of that starting five. We got some returning guys who, like Stephen Thomas, like Jalen Cooper, who had some substantial snaps last year, right? Jadrian Collard. So there's some guys who are gonna be there to say, hey man, we're vying to be on the field as part of the starting five. Man, I really think it's hard to keep Caleb Leonard off the field. It's going to be hard to keep William Boone, that came over from Kilgore as well, off the field. And my guy Pedro da Silva, at the center position, keeping everything together. So I got all three of these guys down, man. When you talk about them being in a room that's, going to be able to help move the ball on not just, move the ball because of what they're able to do up front with pushing for, run blocking, but also being able to keep the quarterback up. I think last year we were near the bottom of the league in sacks against at 27 for 166 yards. I think they're going to definitely have to be, I think you need to be like kind of where we talk about Graham was at that 15. If you're kind of in that 15 to 18
that range,
mark, that's going to really say, okay, man, get these guys looks as far as like, hey, first team, second team, all SWAC offensive line guys, right? Because again, when you look at the running yards per carry average, and then you look at sacks against, that's going to be two of the things that people are going to be paying attention to when they're talking about, the offensive line room. So,
and I kind of like our chances as far as increasing running average, because you don't know what down we're going to run on now. We might come in and throw it on first down.
That's actually a really good point you mentioned.
That's going to be interesting. Yeah. It's going to really open it. And like you said, you mentioned Scooter, and we got to think about the 3-star guy we got that came from UConn. It's just so many weapons around, and we can't sleep on the fact. This is why I tried to call your show the other night. People were saying, well, Whedon won't have the weapons. But what they don't realize is Whedon kept his numbers up even when, 2 of his quarterbacks went down. Mm-hmm. So it's not that he needs a Kincaid back there to make his offense go. If he had to swap them out, he can still go. And then the other thing, while you're speaking of centers, I can't think of the young man's name, number 30. I think he's the best long snapper in the SWAC. Don't want to jinx him.
Ben Stewart. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Stewart, man, that dude has not – if you remember, we would have beat Rice if it was a good snap. And he has never hiked it over the head, rolled the ball to the holder, any of that. And he is just awesome. It's an unsung thing, but he's the best long snapper I think we've had since we had Was it Sable? I think it was his
Man,
name.
that's a,
He was
that's a
really
great
good.
point. That's a great point you make.
Yes.
I didn't include any of the special teams guys on here. But yeah, you're right. You know what I'm saying? So Ben Stu, you know what I mean, is definitely another guy who obviously could get consideration, talking about All-SWAC as well. So that's
Yes.
big. So lastly, man, we're going to talk about the defense, man. I got 4 guys who I want to bring up when you talk about defense that I think have an opportunity to, get a chance to say it again.
Oh, I was looking at Bryce Turner. I said, "Ooh, I'm glad you put him there."
Oh, yeah. So,
And Marshall.
got my man Bryce there. So, first and foremost, man, Jamal Marshall last year, 29 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, right? This is a guy who played over 550 snaps last year. So, definitely one of the guys who Coach had on the field. Coach Rock wanted on the field, and he was on the field a lot, right? You know what I'm saying? When I talk about what he needs, right? And I know he got big goals this year. And I think, listen, if he hits his goals, it's without a shadow of doubt, he's All-SWAC, right? I don't even think he needs to hit his goals, right, to do it right. I think if he's at 40 tackles, 12 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks, that's exactly where he needs to be, man. When you talk about, him being an All-SWAC interior defensive lineman, when you look at some of the other guys, right, who Gentle Hunt, you look at even Anthony Dunn and, some of these guys, right, Kelby Gibbons, that's kind of where you see him lining up at, right? Some of them with a little bit more tackles for loss, but it's kind of that mixture of, definitely plus 10, right? Tackles for loss, and definitely talk about 4+ sacks, right? So I think if you're kind of 12-5 would be in a very comfortable position with those 40 tackles to say, hey man, yeah, this guy is definitely a guy that needs to be, on that All-SWAC list. Last year, also, just to make a note, the defense had a total of 19 sacks all season. I think in general, we need to be at that 24+ range. Obviously, we started off really slow, and talk about, getting to the quarterback. And I think that's not going to happen this year. I think we're going to start off a lot faster, this year. You know what I mean? But I think we can be at that 24+ range, which is basically, it's simply saying 2 sacks per game, right?
But back to coaching again, during the spring game, I saw some more creative stunts than I saw last year. They really changed some things up front. I think we brought in some defensive ends that's gonna help the interior. It
Oh, for
won't
sure.
be as easy to figure out who to double team. And it's gonna be it's not what people think. I've heard people on YouTube say, "Oh, they got base defense, they're boring, they're not gonna do anything." But our defense couldn't have been as awful as people think they were because we got to the championship and the offense a lot of times put the defense, in a bad position, fumble, and now the other team got the ball on their own 33 and they're going in, and so the defense was a lot of times started with their back against the wall. So
Yeah.
they didn't exactly, even all the way back to the championship against Jackson State, our defense really played well. I think Shadur only threw 1 touchdown,
Oh
and that
man,
was a trick play.
the defense played good enough to win the game. Their offense only scored 13 points on the defense, right? They had the interception for a touchdown that our offense threw, and they had the return for a touchdown right before the half. We definitely played well enough, you know what I'm saying, to win that game, especially on the defense end. I mean, we really shut them down. I went back and watched them like that. We played so well, man.
I wish you could watch that game again because what hurt my feelings in that game, and I haven't played ball since high school, but I noticed that James Houston wasn't coming up field. So whoever on their defensive guy, I forgot his name because he used to be here in Dallas with Dion, but he scouted us so well that he told Houston not to rush. So Houston sat in the flat the whole game until he got that pick 6 because he knew at some point Pass was going to try to throw that little swing and he would be right there waiting on it, and the ball went right to him. Because as soon as he looked that way, I said no, because I knew Houston wasn't going to rush. He was going to take 2 steps and stop, and he did that till he got that pick 6.
Hey, listen, that's good film study. And hopefully that'd be something with these new tablets, the SWAC giving us, that we'll be able to catch on the tablet. Like, hey, Houston dropping, so you know what I'm saying. Watch out for throwing that swing pass. But but yeah, man. Next up, man, Warren Schenkel. Warren Schenkel is a guy who has been with the program for many years. 36 tackles, 6 tackles for a loss, and 1 sack last year. In 2022, he had 57 tackles, 5 tackles for a loss, and 1 sack. And when you look at, last year versus, 2022, last year only had 225 total snaps, but he had 332 total snaps in 2022. So that's 100 more, and he produced about 21 more tackles. So if you really extrapolate that out, that, for what we saw Keyshawn Johnson get, he had 521 total snaps last year. Trayvon Green had 497 right now. Obviously, Shank is going to be stepping into that position, that role. So if you extrapolate that out, that's 99 total tackles, right? And that's exactly where he needs to be. If you're talking about as a linebacker, All-SWAC, listen, your number is 100 tackles. All right, that just is what it is. 100 tackles, 10 tackles for a loss. I would say 4 sacks. Definitely got to be a little bit more than that 1 sack, right? So that's a 9 tackle per game average. All right, that'll give him 108 total. So 100 tackles, man, I think is where he needs to be. When you look at Isaac Peppers, who also was All-SWAC, him and John Chaney from FAMU are the only two.
They were nice.
They were great players. They're the only two that didn't have 100 tackles. That was All-SWAC, but Isaac Peppers had 11.5 tackles for loss and 4.5 sacks. John Chaney had 7.5 tackles for loss and 3 sacks, right? But again, John Chaney on that FAMU team and that FAMU defense that won, right? That was really good. So, obviously, you can see it on the field, though his numbers wasn't exactly what others were. Again, that gave him the nod. But Bubba Adams, for example, had 4 sacks, and Jacob Williams, he led all linebackers with 8 sacks, right? So again, that's why I think 4 sacks would be good. 100 tackles, 4 sacks, 10 tackles for a loss, man. I think that gets Warren Schenkel where he needs to be, because he's definitely going to be on the field 500 plus snaps. So he'll have
and they're going to move him around this year too. I think they're going to move him a little bit. So you kind of won't know where he is, but I think depending on the set, he could be in a different place. So, and we have a front 7 where we can kind of afford to move him around. And I think he's a quick linebacker. So I can see him getting those numbers.
Yeah, him and Jeremiah Harris, I think, they play very well with each other, off each other. Been playing, basically is a part of that same package, behind Keyshawn and Green. So I'm looking forward to both of them coming in. I'm looking forward to the linebackers that's going to be sliding in behind them too, as well, because I think we have some interesting pieces in that room, some young pieces in that room that we should be excited about. So now we talk about CJ Presley. Listen, this is a guy who, and I mentioned CJ Presley. I think there's, when we talk about that line, I think you mentioned it earlier, man. We have a couple guys who I really think, man, especially some new guys who really can make some noise. When you look at that spring game, one guy who definitely popped out was Fred Stokes. Okay, even on that pick sticks, really, if you go back and look at that play, man, Fred Stokes is the one who got pressure on the quarterback, right? Getting the
unblockable, man. That dude was hard to block. I saw that,
and so, he looks very healthy now, man. If he can bring that same, mentality and that same aggression, throughout the year, he's going to be causing a lot of problems. And that's why I think that the defensive line room is really just, listen, that room is so deep. And that's the room I'm really excited about on defense, because it makes the secondary job easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but CJ Presley, man, last year, 54 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss, 3.5 sacks, very similar to Jamal Marshall, and that's over 537 snaps. I think he needs to be 50 to 55 tackles, so in that range, but he just really needs to increase those tackles for loss and sacks. If he can get to 11 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, I think he'll be exactly where he needs to be as far as being considered an all-SWAC performer. And I think he obviously has the ability to do that, especially now having other guys that can go in there as well and get the job done. That means he'll be able to get a lot of one-on-ones too as well. So I'm excited about, CJ Presley too, who came over from Villanova, and has been great for us, man. Just a leader all the way through and through. So I'm super excited about, him and what he's going to be able to do. And the last guy, man, I'm super excited about Bryce Turner coming back. I had a chance to interview him. He's a guy who didn't get a chance to. He played in that 2021 championship game, but had a targeting penalty, only played a couple snaps in the first quarter. Didn't get to play in the championship game because of injury. So I know he's excited to get back on this field, man, and get the job done. Back in 2021, that was his best year. He had 602 total snaps, 57% reception percentage, when he was in coverage, which means, 1 out of every 2 times the ball thrown his way, he's not allowing a catch, which is great. 49 total tackles that year, and also that include 18 stops, 5 pass breakups, but no interceptions, right? No interceptions. So I think he needs to be somewhere around 60 tackles, 8 pass breakups, and he needs to have, I would say, 3 to 4 turnovers. So that may be 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. That may be a forced fumble and 3 interceptions, right? Somewhere in that range, just as far as taking the ball away, right? I think would be good, right? And that would put him in a good position to be considered all SWAC on the back end, man. So, what's your thoughts about Bryce and CJ Presley?
Now, did Presley get the interception? Was it that him?
Which one? Are you talking about Texas Southern game?
Yeah. Was that him? No,
that was Farrow. That was Darvier Farrow.
Yeah, that wasn't him. Yeah, that's right. But but Presley is one of those guys. My favorite, the meat eaters, and he really manhandles his lineman that he goes against, but he doesn't take a lot of time. You know how some players are strong, but they spend a lot of time wrestling with the lineman, and he likes to get upfield. And that's one of the things I like about him. Our defense, like I said, is underrated because of a lot of times they were put in, weird positions. So they gave up some scoring, but if everything was all even, people are going to find out this year that defense really carried us, because no way we should have been in the SWAC championship averaging 18 points a game on offense.
Yeah.
So that lets you know those guys were, like you said, we didn't get the pressure up front we really wanted to get, but a lot of times we weren't in a position where we could really kind of push. Like we had to kind of do some, basic defense because of how we were in trouble, and it was tough to gamble. But yeah. I think I see CJ's numbers coming up, especially with some of the help we brought. The defensive line is deeper than people think. We've gotten taller on the defensive line and more aggressive because
brought in some big guys.
Yes.
Real.
Yeah, because that was one of the things you would always hear in the broadcast. Oh, they're fast, but they're undersized. And I don't think we're going to hear a lot of that this year because, Presley's not a little guy, but, I'm just saying, and neither is Marshall. But I'm just saying we've gotten even bigger than those guys on the line. I'm curious to see, how the new defensive ends do. They're pretty rangy and tall. Kind of remind me of the defensive lines that Alcorn had when they used to recruit. I don't remember who the DC was, but he used to like rangy guys, tall, big, strong legs, and they were just tough to move. And I think that is what we've kind of switched to this year versus the stubby guy that, he's tough to get around, but if you do get around him, you can't catch him. So, I think that's going to be the difference this year. And I like Bryce Turner. I think, like you said, the one game he got put out of, it would have been a big difference if he hadn't had to leave. And I think somebody said, watch out for Stacy Brown. I think it's who he's talking. Yeah. And that's gonna help as well because, man, Stacy is nice back there. So Bryce is going to be able to maybe come up a little closer this year. And you got to remember last year, our defensive backfield, we had to move some people to positions they didn't play. Like we had Seatbelt playing safety when he's really more of a corner or a nickel. And, that kind of got us a few times because, he's good, but it's tough to learn a new position. And, he's moved on. But I just think that this year, having a little, it looked like we didn't go out and just get 50 people from the transfer portal, but we did get our depth increased, and there's going to be competition. So we might have the guys listed on our list, and some of the people they brought in might say, no, I want that spot. We don't know because that's how competitive it was going to be. Yeah. And off topic from these guys, this is the first year that we've seen our quarterbacks really in the lab with their wide receivers. So that's going to be different this year because I foresee them having better chemistry this year. And all those guys are competing. They know this is probably first time in a long time where our quarterbacks know that I'm not automatically QB1. And that makes a difference when you got
Does.
people nipping at you. Because I mean, he'll probably redshirt, but man, that freshman quarterback, wow. I've seen him in the lab. I've seen his film from high school, and whew, but luckily we have some veterans that he won't have to step in right away. But if something went down, because that's where my feelings was hurt about the SWAC championship. To be
Yeah,
honest,
yeah,
if
yeah,
we hadn't had some things happen, I really liked that freshman tight end combo we had that nobody knows about because we didn't let them play. When we
yeah.
played against Lamar, we should have did more than let them hand the ball off 3 times. We had that game in control and it didn't count. And he just got frustrated and left, as well as the tight end. But those two, they had that Mahomes Kelsey chemistry because the couple times they did let them play together, whew, they knew where each other was at all times. And I think if he had been there still with the team and had been the backup, I really
Yeah,
think it would have been a different outcome for that
yeah,
game because the
we definitely
defense played their butt off.
we'd had a better shot, And again, that's why I always keep saying, man, you got to go back and watch the game. You got to look at the game, not at the box scores, but actually just
Mm-mm.
look at the game and the momentum. When did the momentum change? Look at how everything was flowing,
Yeah.
right? And the first
Hmm.
game with FAMU, I always say the game ended. Really end of the first, second quarter, beginning of the third quarter. That's where we failed, right? And the games got away from us because it was 14-7. We're driving the
Yes.
ball on like the 33-yard line of FAMU, and we literally throw a pick that is run back to our 15-yard line when really we should have just hit the running back out of the backfield. He probably gets the first down. If not, it's just 2nd and 3 or something, and we keep
Yeah.
going, right? Because that was under
That
like 2
play was
minutes left.
open.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's like, these things are things that are important when you think about just how things roll. And so, yeah, the defense, played extremely well in different spots. People just don't remember, right? The Alcorn game, second half, you had like 6 straight, drives of 3 and out for Alcorn. Southern game, the whole second half, no passing yards until the last, Hail Mary heave, right? That they end
Right.
up catching for like 40 yards, right? So UAPB only giving up 1 pass yard. So it's like you have certain games. It's like, man, you see that this defense has the ability to put it together. And in the spring, they looked a lot more aggressive. Like you said, a lot of the schemes look a lot different. And one of the bigger things that I saw was they finally started getting their hands on people, linebackers and cornerbacks. The past year, that for some reason they just wasn't doing that a lot, or even at all, really. But man, in the spring, listen, they were a lot more aggressive. So I'm really interested to see what it looks like, man, with that front seven. And then also, how the cornerback room is the room that I'm, really want to see how much they have improved from this past year,
Hmm.
because we really didn't bring we only brought one guy in that particular room. I know the safeties we were set at, really, you know what I'm saying? But, so I'm really interested in seeing kind of how they have improved, because I think with a better defensive line, I think we're also going to see some better production from them as well. But I'm really interested to see in what guys get the start, what guys are getting who going to get, some of the main snaps, you know what I'm saying, in the games, because, I know there's a lot of competition in that room as well.
There's a competition. And I think what's going to help with that room as well is you're going to have experienced safeties back there this year. And the front seven, I
Yeah.
think, is going to, and this is our theory right now, but I think the front seven is going to have more pressure, giving the quarterback less time to make a decision. So the cornerback is not covering for 6 or 7 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's gonna make a difference because
Yeah.
when we had cornerbacks playing safety and they're back there, and you do some things out of instinct when you should have stayed back there. You come up because as a corner, you like, I need to cover this guy, and when really you should have stayed back where you're the safety valve, because that's why it's called safety, because you're the last line of defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how that would go because that's what I like about Bryce Turner is he's good at being the last line of defense because if he gets you back there, you're gonna get hit and it's
Mhm.
not gonna be pleasant. So
Yeah, him and Stacey Brown, him and Stacey Brown will both bring the hammer, so it's gonna be
yes,
interesting to see both. And Cam Franklin. So all of those guys, man. Really that whole room. I love all the safety room. Traylon James, Bryce McDonald. All of them, those guys, man, could really get it. So, and the one thing I'm happy too, and that I'm excited to see about the front being a little better is because we were really at the bottom as far as turnovers too, all year. And
Yes,
so that is going to
sure
give us
were.
a chance to get our hands on a lot more balls, especially interceptions. And I think that will change a lot, man, because you talking about, man, getting the offense the ball a lot more with this offense, with this chaos.
Chaos.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting, man. But Kerry, man, I appreciate you for jumping on and just sharing your thoughts. Always insightful, you know what I mean, as ever. So you definitely got to keep coming on and jumping on, man, and sharing your thoughts with me. But yeah, man, until we're gonna definitely jump off here. I hope that for all y'all PV Nation, you guys really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, man, listen, if you haven't subscribed up to now and we able to knock this video out for you and give you this content, you really should subscribe to the channel. Because, I mean, we're trying to get you guys some information that, one, so you can see and be confident in what we're talking about, because we really got them guys. We really got them dudes. You know what I'm saying? So now you can know. You can go tell a friend that tells a friend that tells a friend. You know what I'm
They
saying?
can't say we didn't warn them.
Can't say we did. I keep saying it. I keep saying we gave you a lot of warnings. So when you get your water cut off, you know why. Like we sent you the letters in the mail. We sent the SWAC letters in the mail. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't pay their dues. You feel me? So
yeah, they're not gonna listen. They don't,
Oh no, I can't wait for Tuesday because I already know what's gonna happen, so I ain't tripping. You know what I mean? So we appreciate all y'all, Jared and all y'all, man. Appreciate y'all who've been down from day one, rocking with us again. We almost at 500 subscribers now, man. Make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel because this is our goal before the fall, before the season and the ball drops. So we got a little bit of time left. We're like 18 subs away. Go and share with somebody, man, that would be blessed by the content and would be excited about being over here with us and just growing with this community of PV Nation, man. So until next time, we appreciate all y'all for jumping on, and we'll holla.
Later.